All right, whatever. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. It is your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you live from it used to be the Gen Bet once upon a time. We're in just my little joint studio office that I share with my wife. Again, all things I never thought I would have been saying a year ago at this time. A year ago at this time, I was actually, well, for starters, as I can see my reflection, I was in way better shape. Married life has got me a little lazy. I was a single guy and I was looking for what the next act was going to be, was taking things into the NFL season. And now I'm a happily married guy who is, focusing his attention on, trying to build a good life with my wife and, make things good at home. So I have not had the time to necessarily dedicate to being on this channel as much as I'd like to be. I don't necessarily believe in putting out crap content, even though I did a great job or I had a long running time of putting out crap content. But every now and again, I feel like my thoughts are clear, or I may have something that is worth talking about, and I have the time to actually get it done. So here I am. So we got someone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that douchebag stuff like podcast hosts like myself say. And I just wanted to talk about the NFL up to point in time. It's truly the wildest league that is out there. It's not the league I grew up watching. I mean, I always have to ask myself at 40 years old, am I just becoming an old man or are things changing? I ask this about all kinds of things in different aspects of life. For example, like I used to like fast food. Now I don't like fast food. Was it because it actually, or a lot of junk food I used to like? Is it because my taste bud changed? Is it because the shit is now crap? I tend to think it's more of the latter, but I have no way of knowing. I never was 40 years old before. To be honest with you, there was a while there I probably wasn't even gonna planning on seeing 40, but that's a conversation for another day, and perhaps something that will be kind of be transitioning to where this channel is going to be going because some things going on behind the scenes, not necessarily just related to this podcast, but related to my personal life, may allow me a little more flexibility to get back going in this one. And we may be, well, I think I've mentioned this before on somewhere else, but the Scho-Zone brand or the Scho-Zone theme, that title, that's probably going to be going away soon. I have one in mind that I plan on going with that I've, did a little research. I don't see anything. I don't see any channels with the name. And I think kind of going with the overall theme of things where I would want to be going for the Scho-Zone, because let's face it, it's never good when I type in the name of this show, the Scho-Zone, or this channel, and it doesn't pop up a result for it. I found that out as well. If you were to look at when I was doing audio podcast version of this, if you type in the Scho-Zone on Spotify, you can't find it. So it's really, really tough. Where as much as I like just doing this and just letting my chest flow or my thoughts flow, it's very, very difficult to actually make anything happen if nobody can find you or actually get encouragement to going forward or willing to put in the work. Because I'll tell you, everybody hates podcast hosts. I will tell you that we are douchebags, but fact of the matter is that this is not easy. It's not for everybody. So I see that we have some people that are actually in the chat. Again, like, subscribe, comment, share. If you have any questions or any thoughts, let them rip. Let them rip. Let them go. But I was planning on talking about the NFL through week 5 right now. And again, this is where I started that little rant there. This is not the NFL that I grew up watching. It is, to me, I think, I guess it's interesting. I guess it's entertaining for all the wrong reasons, if you ask me, as far as the league has been trying to get a league of parity for as long as possible. And that truly is the case. Okay, we got some different languages we're looking at here, which, hey, I am international. I do, I have a Kenyan wife. And I'm actually, one of the things I'm spending some time with on here is learning a new language. So I'm actually been learning some Swahili. But back to my, thoughts with the NFL here, which again, if we're getting people from international, who gave this guy a platform? Actually, I gave it to myself, bud. Doesn't really take much. You just start a channel and people start following. So there's like 229 people that do like me. So that's all that really matters. It's not enough, but you could have your own platform if you want to. Sure, you're a douchebag as well. So yeah, and that's I guess maybe someone's told me that insulting people in the comments is not the best way to build a following. But if you're gonna ask who gave this guy a platform, I'm just gonna answer the question honestly. My opinions are disregarded. Okay, that's fine. I mean, what does it say about you if you're watching? You got nothing better to do than to watch a guy who shouldn't have a platform or doesn't have opinions where they haven't. But anyways, uh, there's no undefeated teams left in the NFL. I feel like that for the longest time that we always had a one dominant team or team that at least made a run. This has been a recent phenomenon. I don't have the stats to back this up on this, but I think that we've we're at week 5 right now. We have no undefeated teams left. I feel like we used to at least get a team to 6-0 or 7-0 or so. Now, I mean, the team that should be undefeated probably is the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts, if not for a guy dropping a touchdown before he scored across the goal line, which is a recent phenomenon that has just been, I mean, it's not a recent phenomenon, but it's getting much, much worse, I will say. That is, uh, they're the closest to Kansas City? No, Kansas City. No, they're not. They're not undefeated. They're not. I mean, they're actually behind the ball a little bit. We'll see how they do tonight. I mean, I can't believe that in what universe I have where I can't confidently wager money on the Kansas City Chiefs over the Jacksonville Jaguars. That may be to my own detriment, but that's where we're at right now. But the Bills, they were looking like they're undefeated. I mean, Josh Allen was a minus, was below even money for MVP based on the speculation at looking at the Bills' schedule that they're going to have this great record. It's been a little bit smoke and mirrors, I want to say, with the Bills, where aside from a dominant performance against the Jets, which, let's be real here, being a dominant performance against the Jets is not exactly the hardest thing to come by in the 2025 season. The Ravens game was a fluke. I mean, let's just call it what it was. They couldn't stop a nosebleed that game. And then they finally, score, they put some luck together at the end and walked away with a victory. That was one of the more improbable victories that, of the NFL season. Actually, I think that that's the most improbable victory of the NFL season. We had the second most improbable victory of the NFL season with the Arizona Cardinals yesterday, the Tennessee Titans beating the Arizona Cardinals yesterday, which there's that win probability thing that they do, and this is a recycled rant from other people. But again, maybe we need to do away with the win probability where if there's less than a 2% chance of a team winning and and it happens, I mean, it's just maybe just let the games just play out. I get that there's a bunch of math that goes in there, but NFL is a weird sport right now, and there's no great teams and a lot of bad teams. But the difference between the really good teams and the really bad teams, it's not a very wide margin. It makes it incredibly difficult to bet on, I would say, as somebody who used to be a winning bettor. And I mean, again, I also used to put way too much time and effort into that. It's tough on a week to week basis. I don't enjoy it as much anymore. The legalized gambling, same. I for a long time as a regular pot smoker and a regular sports bettor, I had no problems with sports betting being illegal. I had no problem with pot being illegal. And now with it being both of them being legalized, I could argue that both of them have gotten worse. The pot one I'll leave it for a separate conversation. This is about sports. This conversation, but it's the lines. It's hard to find value on betting the NFL at this point in time. Anyone that is saying that they have any idea what is going to happen, you're just getting lucky or you're lying to yourself. I mean, you can even see that some proven some proven winners year after year, they're having a little bit of a rut with this one because the way that these games are finishing out, it's just like Plinko on there. And, like there's no rhyme or reason to how these games finish. We've got all kinds of quirky decisions by coaches. I mean, I think the quality of play is lower than it's ever been, and the coaching is also lower than it's ever been. So we get some really weird, wacky finishes in these games. No more so ever than I believe than we saw. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm wearing a St. Louis Cardinals shirt right here, but I am very happy that the Arizona Cardinals collapsed yesterday because where I'm going is that I fantasy sports doesn't really do it for me anymore. I think that fantasy sports is really kind of at this point in time in my life I have found is more of about it's as much luck as it is skill. I mean, yes, you can minimize damage in that regards, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're in through week 5 right now, and if you were to redraft all of your fantasy football leagues, you would have a way different top 20 players picking than you had previously out there. That's just and there's nothing you can do about it. Injuries are happening like crazy, and it's really just a matter of the skill to fantasy football is to draft guys that don't get hurt and draft guys that score touchdowns, and then also be lucky enough to be facing teams that didn't have their outlier weeks against you. I remember the last couple of years I played fantasy football. You'd have the guy, I think that the guy that was second to last in our league also had the second most points, just had the luck of always facing the wrong team on the wrong week. And that sucks and that's unfortunate. And like I've always said, I've said it a million times on this platform, but that this one douchebag thinks that I shouldn't have, but it's, got to enjoy the First Amendment in this country. We'll just leave it at that. I can do it. YouTube lets me do it. So I'll continue to do it for the couple people that are watching here who, we got an equal amount of people watching and likes. I doubt they're all the same people. We've been losing people left and right, but so be it. Yeah. I fantasy football doesn't do it for me anymore. Then you had, the daily fantasy for a little while before gambling got legal. That was kind of fun, but then you realized that you were playing against these sophisticated computer systems, and the people that were investing tons of money to take the regular person's money. So that was kind of a it was basically just a microcosm of how the stock market works, I guess I would say. But where I would say the best way to go, the whole purpose of this one is that the most fun that I have or the true enjoyment I get out of watching the NFL now is the survivor pools or the last man standing pools. I think that what's at the end of the day, everybody wants to risk a little bit to make a ton. And the reality, most people were not going to do that. Especially, back once upon a time when I devoted more time and energy into the NFL and was willing to actually put down some serious, some bigger bucks on there. Again, a winning NFL better, if you're picking at 55% of your games against the spread, that's where you're winning money. That means that you have to be comfortable with being wrong 45% of the time. That's a tough way to make a living. There's too many swings involved in it. And again, with the volatility of the officiating too is also another volatile aspect to the whole gambling process. I mean, I watched the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, I watched the Saints and the Giants game yesterday. And it's just every time that something happens, you have to just hold your breath and make sure that it actually stands. Hello, Angel. Thank you for waving. Thank you for stopping in. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say. But I think that the true best way to do this is now just to kind of keep it simple. I mean, I had a little stretch going, or what I've really tried to incorporate or doing is not just having constant amounts of action, but just trying to isolate your spots. And just maybe every now and again, if you really feel strongly about something, the easiest way to win $500 is just to bet $500 on one thing. That's not even as easy as it used to be, as I would say. But the Survivor Last Man Standing pool has truly become the most exciting way to follow these leagues, I must say. And the format for that one, for those that are not familiar, is very simple. Everybody ponies up their ante at the beginning of the season. We have 18 weeks of the NFL season. You'll have to pick one team every week to win the game just outright. No spreads, no nothing. They just have to win their week. The catch being that once you use that team, you can never use them again. Right now, I am in my pool. I've won a couple of these before, and right now I'm in one that there's a $1.2 million prize, and I like the idea of that for my minimal entry that there's a chance that I could be a part of that win out, that payout there. It's keeping me very, very interested. It gives you an incentive, an action in every game, so to speak, because you have your pick that you have, and then ultimately you get to just root for upsets in all the other games, which is a very, very great way to watch this game. Angel, you have definitely been you're like one of my top fans, I guess. You just keep commenting. I'm not sure if you're real or not, but thank you for the continued comments on here. So you pick one team a week, and then you just keep going. And this year was pretty straightforward for the most part so far. Going into this week, about 50% of the pool that I was in was still around. We lost half of them this week. The biggest one being the Arizona. Well, there was the St. Louis Rams on Monday or on Thursday night's football. They had their very improbable win where they were on their way into scoring the go-ahead touchdown and fumbled at the 1 yard line. And then, long story short, ended up losing that game. That was a big one. And then, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, where I'm not exactly somebody that thinks the NFL is rigged. I'm never going to be one of those guys. But if they were to ever reveal that there was some weird things going on with the Arizona Cardinals yesterday, if it was ever to be revealed in an investigation, it would not surprise me. They were also a big loser yesterday for a lot of people. So now my pool is down to 23% of people. So through 5 weeks of NFL, there's now 23% of us left, which means I still have a chance at this 1.2 million. And I kind of like my position so far because I have not used a ton of what I would call good teams so far. Uh, and that's the whole part of this is that there's, the idea you just got to pick one team a week, but it's also you want to be careful about when you pick teams because, there's always you want to work, you want to be there, you want to have a plan for the future, but you also want to be there for the future. So yesterday I took the biggest favorite on the board, the Detroit Lions, because I was looking at the Detroit Lions remaining schedule and it seemed that, they're not going to be a bigger favorite at any point in time this year than they were yesterday. They're going to be favorites in a lot of games going forward, but I can create doubt, create scenarios where I could see a team losing. And I was really, really happy that I got my Arizona Cardinals pick out of the way in week 2. I took them against the Carolina Panthers, a game which they led handily, that they ended up needing to hang on by a thread to win. And that was that was kind of the blueprint for how their season went, or how their game went yesterday. They were up comfortably against the Tennessee Titans, who were the winless football team that had looked pretty hapless, looked like their coach was about to be fired. And they're up 21-6 in the fourth quarter. And this DeMarcado character, who's become one of the most infamous names in all of football right now, breaks a 78-yard touchdown run, but then, of course, flips the ball up before he crosses the goal line. And instead of there being a 28-6 lead with only about 10 minutes left in the game, there is now a 21-6 lead, and the Titans have the ball. They march down and score, don't get the extra point, so we're at 21-12. Then they get the Cardinals go 3 and out. Titans get the ball back. They throw a red zone pick, which somehow it's just the most. You have to watch it to explain it. I'm going to do no justice to this one, but basically a ball that is intercepted, the defender goes to the ground with the ball, is not touched down by contact, loses the ball, live football, in the scramble to get the football, it ends up getting kicked into the end zone and recovered for a touchdown. And then the Cardinals then go 3 and out and punt it to the Tennessee Titans. At this point in time, I made what I think is the best way, too, if you are going to wager on football, is the in-game wager at plus money. If you can get teams, this league is all kind of built on comebacks. And almost sometimes, again, I'm not on the rigged side of things, but it is almost seem like it's orchestrated sometimes. And I gave myself, the Titans have, because now for a team to have to drive to get a field goal, it doesn't seem as hard as it used to be in this league. There's a bunch of factors with that one. All of the bullshit penalties that can be possibly called. The fact that NFL defenses do not seem like that they have the endurance to play defense for 60 full minutes. And the fact that NFL kickers now can very, very easily kick 50-yard field goals. It just seems like that it's almost a recipe for the team that has the ball last is in a real, real advantageous position. And sure enough, I ended up grabbing the Titans at like plus 250. The Titans drive down, kick that field goal, and now Survivor is down to, like I said, 23% of the pool in my play on there. So that's a little bit of a recap of ranting and raving. Maybe that guy is right. Who did give this guy a platform? Like I said, I gave it to myself, and YouTube's out there. And if you don't like it, you can ignore. But if you do like it, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say. So, going forward, I'm going to kind of just wrap this one up. I just wanted to get a rep out there. I had some, thoughts on my head. I'm going to be going where I'm leaning towards next week. I think I'm going to be taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that they're going to be the best survivor play for next week. There's a couple of other, there's a couple games where, you would say a team should win pretty comfortably. But again, can I create some doubt on some things? And the answer is usually yes on a couple of them. For example, the Eagles own the Giants, for the past God knows how many years. But do I really want to put on a Thursday night football game? Do I want to have the Eagles against the Giants when the Eagles seem like they're in complete disarray and the Giants have a little bit of spunk to them? Like, yes, they did make a bunch of turnovers yesterday, but that was also a road game, first road game for Jackson Dart. That's one that I'm not gonna risk it all on. There is, they would probably say the safest play on the board would be taking the Green Bay Packers coming off a bye week against the Cincinnati Bengals. But the way that the Bengals are, the Packers defense looks very, very suspect against the Dallas Cowboys. And then all of a sudden, just the way that the game ended yesterday against the Lions, I know that it was in garbage time, but there's that scenario where can Jamar Chase just go off? I mean, Jamar Chase is probably still trying to hold on to that title as the best wide receiver in the NFL. Where it seems that Puka Nacua has been gaining a lot of traction on that because Puka Nacua still has his starting quarterback, and Jamar Chase without what's his face, without Joe Burrow, it doesn't seem like he's quite the guarantee that he is to put up the numbers that we're accustomed to with him. But then he has those 2 touchdowns at the end of the game, and can I see a scenario where the Packers shoot themselves in the foot because they did it against the Browns, or that Jamar Chase just goes off and makes a much more tighter game? So the reason I'm going with the Steelers is that this is just kind of like one of those just great spots on the schedule, I would say, where they're coming off a bye week and the Browns are they're playing a game after they are coming back from Europe. So kind of a weird travel spot for the Browns. I usually don't like taking divisional games if I can help it because some weird stuff happens in there. But I look at that right now as an opportunity where the Steelers are only going to go as far as they can with Aaron Rodgers, and getting him at a fresh, off a fresh week at that age. That's the thing right now too, is that you can't necessarily map out too far ahead in Survivor these days because of the fact that you don't know what team you're going to have in front of you in a couple weeks. So while I still have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I think I like them to be my pick for the week. And just kind of, you have to pick 18 teams out of the 32. And I don't think there's 18. I don't think there's more than 8 good teams in the NFL. So picking who you can at those points in time. Anyways, that was just me just kind of just ranting like a lunatic for a little bit. So thanks to anybody who stuck this one out. And then apologies to anybody who watches this on delay. This was not my best work. It was just kind of impromptu, had the time, had the energy. So I will be looking to again rebrand this channel as to something else, something that maybe gets a little more traffic to it. And then once I can kind of lock down behind the scenes where I have a little more of a stable schedule, maybe start putting a little bit more time and effort into this. I know that it feels like my last couple episodes have been nothing but apologies to those who have watched. That's just what it is. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for shopping, and have a nice day.